Deep inside a limestone mountain in northern Luzon, a single bone the size of your thumb rewrote everything scientists thought they knew about who came first. It did not belong to a modern human.
It did not belong to any known ancestor.
It belonged to something smaller, older, and stranger. A creature that lived on an island that, according to every map of the ancient world, should have been impossible to reach. For decades, this bone sat unidentified in a drawer while researchers searched for answers. When they finally found them, the discovery did not just add a new name to the history books. It forced anthropologists to admit that the story of how humans spread across the earth was far messier than anyone had dared to imagine. And that the Philippines, long overlooked in the story of human origins, was hiding one of the most important secrets on the planet. The cave where it all began is called Callao, tucked into the karst hills of Peñablanca in Cagayan province in the far north of the Philippines. Locals had known about the cave for generations, using its enormous chambers as shelter and its cool interior as a refuge from the tropical heat. Archaeologists first explored it in 2003, digging through layers of sediment in hopes of finding traces of early human activity. That first expedition came up empty, and the team nearly abandoned the site altogether. It would take 4 more years and a great deal of patience before the cave gave up its first real secret. A discovery that almost went unnoticed because nobody yet understood what they were looking at. In 2007, buried within the cave floor, researchers recovered a single foot bone, a third metatarsal, dated to roughly 67,000 years old. It was the earliest confirmed evidence of a human presence anywhere in the Philippine Islands, older than anything found at other well-known sites. But the bone was unusual. Its curvature resembled traits seen in far more ancient relatives, hominins that walked the earth over 1 million years earlier in Africa. Scientists were left with a puzzle they could not solve with a single bone. Was this an early population of modern humans with an unusual foot? Or was it something else entirely? A species nobody had names for yet? The answer would not come for over a decade, and it would only arrive because a team led by Filipino archaeologist Armand Salvador Mijares refused to stop digging. Between 2011 and 2015, further excavations at Callao produced more fragments: 7 teeth, additional foot and hand bones, and a fragment of thigh, representing at least 3 separate individuals. Piece by piece, a picture began to form, and it was unlike anything in the existing human family tree. The bones showed a strange mixture of primitive and modern features side by side, as if evolution had reached into the past and the present at the same time and stitched together something new. In April of 2019, the findings were finally published in the journal Nature, and the world took notice. The species was given a name, Homo luzonensis, after the island where it was found. It was immediately compared to another famous discovery from years earlier, the so-called hobbit species, Homo floresiensis, unearthed on the Indonesian island of Flores. Like its distant island cousin, Homo luzonensis appeared to be small in stature, shaped by isolation on a remote landmass cut off from the rest of the world.
Researchers nicknamed the specimens ubag after a mythical cave-dwelling figure from local folklore. A fitting name for a species that had been hiding in plain sight for tens of thousands of years. What made Homo luzonensis so remarkable was not just its size, but its timing. Testing showed the individuals lived somewhere between 50,000 and 67,000 years ago, meaning they existed at the very same moment that several other human species were alive elsewhere on the planet. Neanderthals still walked across Europe. Denisovans occupied parts of Asia. Homo floresiensis lingered on Flores. And modern Homo sapiens were actively migrating out of Africa, spreading across continents. For a brief and extraordinary window in prehistory, at least 5 different kinds of humans shared the Earth at the same time. And one of them was quietly living in a cave in the northern Philippines. The physical details only deepened the mystery. The curved foot bones suggested a creature still partly adapted for climbing, a trait normally associated with far older, more primitive relatives millions of years removed. Yet the teeth told a different story, showing features that looked surprisingly modern and complex. It was, as one leading paleoanthropologist described it, a combination of traits unlike anything scientists had documented before. This blend of old and new characteristics suggested that Homo luzonensis either evolved independently on the island over an extremely long period, or descended from an ancestor far more ancient than anyone expected to find so far from mainland Asia. That question, how did any hominin end up on Luzon in the first place, might be the most astonishing part of the entire story. Luzon Island has never, at any point in its geological history, been physically connected to the Asian mainland by dry land. Even during the ice ages, when sea levels dropped low enough to expose vast stretches of land elsewhere in the region, deep water channels still separated Luzon from its neighbors. This means that whatever ancestor eventually gave rise to Homo luzonensis could not have simply walked there. They had to cross open ocean, deliberately or by chance, using nothing but the most basic means available to early hominins. For years, mainstream science assumed that only fully modern humans possessed the intelligence and capability for that kind of sea crossing. That assumption was already being challenged by the discovery of Homo floresiensis on Flores, another island that required an ocean crossing to reach. The existence of Homo luzonensis on the other side of the region, separated by hundreds of miles of water and years of evolutionary distance, added powerful new weight to the theory. It suggested that early hominins, long before modern humans existed, may have been capable of drifting across open water on rafts of vegetation, whether by accident during storms, or through some early form of intentional exploration. This idea sits at the edge of a much larger scientific concept called island rule evolution, sometimes referred to as insular dwarfism. When a population becomes isolated on a small island with limited resources and few large predators, natural selection tends to favor smaller body size over successive generations. Large mammals shrink to conserve energy, while smaller creatures sometimes grow larger in the absence of competition. If a group of ancient hominins became stranded on Luzon and remained isolated there for tens of thousands of years. This evolutionary pressure could explain both their small stature and their unusual mixture of primitive and modern traits. Shaped entirely by the unique conditions of the island they called home. But Callao Cave had one more secret waiting, and it would push the story of human presence in the Philippines back even further than anyone expected. Not far from the original excavation site, in the Kalinga region of northern Luzon, researchers uncovered something startling. The nearly complete skeleton of an ancient rhinoceros, its bones bearing unmistakable cut marks and signs of deliberate butchery. Stone tools were found alongside the remains. When the site was dated, the results were staggering, placing the evidence at roughly 700,000 years old. More than 10 times older than the Homo luzonensis fossils themselves. This meant that some hominin species, whether an ancestor of Homo luzonensis or an entirely different lineage altogether, was already present on Luzon Island and actively hunting large animals with tools hundreds of thousands of years before Homo luzonensis as we know it even existed. It pushed the confirmed timeline of hominin presence in the Philippines back to a period once considered unimaginable for island Southeast Asia. Suddenly, Luzon was not a remote, late-arriving corner of human migration. It was one of the earliest known hominin footholds anywhere in the region, rivaling discoveries once thought unique to mainland Asia and Africa. Taken together, these findings place the Philippines at the very center of one of the most important debates in modern paleoanthropology. For years, the story of human evolution in Southeast Asia was told mostly through discoveries in Indonesia, China, and mainland Asia. The Philippine Islands were treated as a footnote, a place humans reached only after everything important had already happened elsewhere. Callao Cave shattered that narrative completely.
It proved that the islands were not a late chapter in the human story, but an active, independent stage where entirely new chapters of evolution were unfolding, hidden from the rest of the world until a single foot bone was pulled from the dirt.
And yet, for all that has been uncovered, the mystery of Homo luzonensis remains far from solved. With only a handful of bones and teeth recovered so far, scientists still cannot say with certainty how this species is related to other known hominins. Whether it descended from an early wave of Homo erectus that reached the islands and evolved in isolation, or from some older, undiscovered ancestor entirely unique to the region. Every new excavation at Callao carries the possibility of rewriting the story yet again. And researchers continue to return to the cave, aware that the ground beneath their feet may still be holding on to secrets far older than anything found so far. Just as puzzling is the question of what ultimately happened to them. Homo luzonensis appears in the fossil record and then, as far as current evidence shows, vanishes. There is no clear trace of what happened after roughly 50,000 years ago. No confirmed evidence of contact with the modern humans who were beginning to arrive in the region around the same period. Did they interbreed with incoming modern humans, leaving behind a genetic trace still hidden somewhere in the DNA of people living in the Philippines today? Did they slowly die out, unable to adapt once their isolated island world was disturbed? For now, nobody can say for certain. What makes this discovery even more extraordinary is how quietly it happened.
There was no legend leading treasure hunters to the site, no centuries-old rumor whispered from generation to generation. Just a team of patient scientists, a mountain cave in a province most people outside the Philippines have never heard of, and a single bone that almost went unnoticed twice. It is a reminder that some of the most significant chapters in human history are not hidden behind coded maps or buried under gold, but sitting quietly in the dark, waiting for someone curious enough to keep digging, even after the first attempt turns up nothing at all. The discovery also reshapes how the Philippines itself should be understood on the world stage. For generations, the story taught in classrooms placed the islands firmly at the receiving end of human migration, a destination reached only after early humans had already spread across most of the Earth. Callao Cave turns that story on its head. It suggests that the Philippine archipelago was not a distant outpost of humanity, but one of its earliest and most independent laboratories. A place where a completely distinct branch of the human family tree grew, adapted, and thrived for tens of thousands of years without any contact with the outside world at all. Today, the fossils of Homo luzonensis are kept and studied with extraordinary care, each new scan and each new comparison offering fresh clues about a species that briefly shared the planet with our own ancestors. Researchers continue to excavate at Callao and at nearby sites across Cagayan and Kalinga, searching for the bones that might finally answer where this species came from and why it disappeared. Every rainy season, every new grant, every careful sweep of a trowel through ancient sediment carries the chance of finding the piece that completes the picture, or opens up an entirely new mystery no one has considered yet. In the end, the story of Homo luzonensis is not just about an ancient species lost to time. It is a story about how much of human history still remains buried, waiting in caves and riverbeds across the world for someone to notice what has been there all along. Somewhere in the limestone hills of northern Luzon, the ground still holds fragments of a species that lived, adapted, and vanished long before recorded history began. A reminder that the Philippines, so often overlooked in the grand narrative of human origins, may still be hiding the answers to questions science has not even learned to ask yet.